and thank you for joining us at the 2024 Sloan Sports Analytics Conference Competitive Advantage Talks, presented by CAGR, also known as the Craft Analytics Group. My name is Jacob Harrison, and I'm a first-year MBA candidate at MIT Sloan, and it's my pleasure to introduce our presentation, Game On, Elevating NBA Referee Performance with Reps. Join me in welcoming our speaker, Matt Futterman, Senior Director of Referee Operations, to the stage.
Thanks, David. The year is 1994. It's a cold night in Houston, and you just finished working the Rockets-Knicks game where Hakeem Olajuwon and Patrick Ewing were going at it. You're excited to get to your hotel room, get to sleep, because you have 5 hours until your next flight to your next game. You walk into that hotel room, and there it is, the blinking red light. To most, just a normal voicemail message. To referees back in the day, this was just one way that management sent feedback to those individuals. Today, we're going to speak about the evolution of how referees are receiving feedback and go through our current processes and systems. People often ask me, referees just show up, work the game, and go home, right? And that couldn't be further from the truth. All of our referees have dedicated their lives to this profession, just like our players, coaches, and teams have. So, in order to take a step back, we wanted to provide a quick overview of all the different inputs that that work on referee performance. It starts with our senior management. Byron Sporrell, Albert Sanders, Monty McCutcheon, John Ziza, Evan Wash, Joe Dumars, there's many people, Stephen Angel, that really help set this tone and the strategic vision of the referee operations group. We have our development advisors. These are individuals that are former referees who have come off the floor to work on the day-to-day evaluation and training of our officials, right? Joe Crawford, Mark Wunderlich, they provide a level of expertise through their experience that they can deliver practically to those individuals. The analytics plays a huge role in our overall referee performance ecosystem. As some of you may know, each referee and each call that they make and each call that they don't make is graded, right? So all of that feeds into what performance looks like and successful officiating looks like. We have video breakdowns, right? Referees don't just show up, watch the game, and go home. They're constantly looking at their video, breaking down tape, working with one another, and working with the system that we're going to be speaking about today. Our replay center obviously plays a huge role of what performance looks like on the court, obviously helping the referees make decisions when they go over to the booth, but also at halftime and at the end of the game, our referees are able to help break down video from all those different angles that the replay center provides. Our in-season training, each month, and even more than that, we'll actually have Zoom calls with our staff in smaller groups to really get a handle on some of the key areas that are going on over the course of the season, to work with them directly and so that they hear that one consistent messaging. Rules and quizzes, right? You know, the foundation of being a referee is knowing the rules. Each week, our referees receive a weekly rules quiz that they take and are held accountable to how they do. The summer camps and training, that's really the time of year where we're able to take a step back and look holistically at the previous season. So much of what we do, right, is in the day-to-day work, right? The grind of game to the next game to the next game. The summer is really a time when we can take that step back and look at, hey, what are the key areas that we want to work on for the future and evaluate ourselves from the previous season. The referee preseason meeting, right, so similar to all of our teams, we also host a preseason meeting where we will actually have every single referee fly in, and similar to this classroom right here, for a week long, we will break down video on those screens the entire week. Points of emphasis, key areas, administrative duties, that is really us getting ready for the season so that we can hit the ground running. And finally, our league stakeholders, right? Our teams, our coaches, our front office members, all those individuals play a key role in what referee performance looks like and what the product we want to see on the floor. So even with our referee performance ecosystem, we sat down in 2018 and noticed that there were still some gaps. A lot of our referee performance feedback and evaluations was happening in silos. So we started looking at all those different problems and started to think about creating one system that could help us solve them, right? So what we saw was that all of our feedback was being delivered in individual emails, right? So if you had sent something in January and it was March and you wanted to pull something back up on that individual, right? Retention policies, you may not know what happened or what we actually were doing with that information. So we wanted to build a system that would allow us to quickly resurface those relevant interactions. We noticed that it was difficult for us to consistently share and review plays in an efficient manner. So we wanted a system that would allow us to have these creation of these centralized social messaging tools, right? Some people were talking over text message, phone, email, in-person conversations. All of that is really, truly valuable data that we were missing out on, that we wanted to log and create this community of in an efficient way. We were unable to pull up relevant plays, right? The referees told us there's no better way to train than through video work. And we did not, at that time, have one consistent system that allowed our referees to easily find plays and management. So we wanted to engineer a platform that would allow us to have easy play identification. If I wanted to find a travel call from the game 2 weeks ago with this individual, I should be able to click a couple buttons and be able to easily pull that up. There was an inconsistent format of how our evaluations and categorizations, right? What one person thought, hey, this was really good communication, another person may think, oh, that was actually just okay communication. So we wanted to allow a platform that would help encourage consistent language, right? Drop-downs, standards, definitions. We saw that management didn't really have access to big picture trends. So what was going on was that our managers were unable to have a good understanding of what that individual was performing. So we wanted a system that would allow us to highlight those analytical patterns. We needed to measure the intangible aspects of performance, right? What was all those different characteristics? So we wanted to develop a competency model. And finally, we needed to maximize the benefits of the collected performance data, and we wanted to have that be included through the entire system workflow. So we sat down, and in order to make sure that we were evaluating referees in an optimal way, we first needed to define what excellence looked like. So we worked with our HR managers and performance experts to do a really in-depth qualitative study on all those different characteristics that impact referee performance, right? We know that we had a very robust play calling and analytical system. However, we knew that there was more to being a successful official than just getting plays right and wrong, right? Managing the game, understanding all the different stakeholders that were involved, how well they're able to communicate. So through this behavioral analysis, not only did we want to define and capture those traits, but we wanted to see how can we measure them, right? We had an issue where we'd say, hey, that referee is really, really good at communication, trust us, right? You can imagine how that goes over. We wanted to move forward from that and say, hey, this referee is really, really good at communication, and here are 10 different distinct, tangible examples that prove exactly that. So what we say in the office, and I'm stealing this from our HR colleague who helped us with that, is what gets measured can get better. And so when we were able to measure those pieces and these referee competencies, we can then truly have an understanding of how is this person doing and how can they improve and are they improving. So all of this, again, paired with our analytical data, really gave us a really nice picture of what a full picture of a referee's season and how they were doing. Here's an example of one of those competencies, communicative. Again, what was so important for us is that all of our managers were speaking the same language. It didn't matter if you were a referee receiving feedback from person A or person B, they should have a clear understanding of what the expectations were from that manager. So we defined all these instances, but what we also found was that managers had different expectations for each of these competencies depending upon what position the referee was on the floor. And so what we saw was that a crew chief, for example, we would want to make sure that they were able to diffuse situations with communication in a way where they were still approachable. Where our umpires, might be looking for them to be able to use communication to develop relationships while still being able to hold our game participants accountable and discipline the game when needed. Right? So having those different level of definitions based on our referee positions provided even more in-depth information about how we were able to have a consistent and accountable message in terms of what excellence looked like. Even still, through all this, we realized we still needed one platform to be able to measure and look at all these pieces of information that were coming in, right? referee operations, rankings and data, our play calling analytic data, our team input. It was still coming in silos. So we came up with the Referee Engagement and Performance System, or REPS. What is REPS? REPS, right, is our centralized mobile platform with evaluation and training tools that at the click of a button, you can find a play, send it to somebody, and just like any of your other social media applications, get an instant notification. What REPS allows us to do is have a standardized criteria, right, for performance and development so that we're all speaking the same language. And ultimately, what we found was that referees were telling us, hey, I'm on the road, I'm flying on my own, I'm in Denver, then to Dallas, then to Houston, then to OKC and New Orleans, and I'm always on my own. So the idea was, how can we develop a community of collaboration amongst the entire staff so that it doesn't matter, referees are constantly talking about plays, managers are constantly talking about plays. Let's give them the best environment in order to do so. And then obviously over the years, we built a ton of additional features, really looking to make this a one-stop shop, a centralized platform where anything related to referees and what they needed to accomplish or what management needed to understand about their performance, they were able to do. One of those additional features being our playlists, right? So if you could imagine a Spotify or YouTube, we took a very similar concept in order to best track trends through our playlist. And what that looked like was we first defined what our area of focus first was, right? So this year, flopping was a big focus for our staff and our league. So we might create a flopping playlist. We'll then add every single member of our referee staff to that playlist, and then we'll start crowdsourcing examples, right? So over the course of a month, we may see 20, 30, 40 examples of these flopping playlists that anyone can go in, click a button, and watch 30 plays in a row, all with that one same consistent messaging from management, so that we were trying to lessen the gap, right? Lessen the width of what we expected on those types of plays. Again, delivering that consistent messaging. And finally, what's most important, right, is how are we holding those individuals accountable to that feedback that we were collecting, right? Not only did we want to say, hey, this is what we expect of you, now that we've said that, how do we best evaluate and make sure that you're tracking towards those pieces of information? So the foundation of REPS is really this referee performance and development cycle, right? The platform is not just for referees, but also for managers. And managers really have three main things that they told us they needed to be able to do in the platform. The first is prepare for the game. Teams have scouting reports, players have scouting reports. Well, now referee managers have scouting reports. The first thing that they do when they're going to evaluate an official is pull up that referee's profile, right? We had a gap in the past where if a manager evaluated a referee on Monday and a different manager evaluated that same referee on Wednesday, there was really no way for them to sync unless they directly spoke to one another. That meant that that referee may be receiving inconsistent feedback. What we wanted to make sure was that there was a consistent flow from one person to the next, again, so that you really had no idea who was speaking to you, and you were consistently getting that same message across our entire management team. So we built a referee profile, and we'll take a look at that in a minute, where our managers can go in and learn everything that they need to know about the referee before they watch them that night. The second piece was evaluation, right? This was done in email, Excel forms, PDFs, really a very unsuccinct way. So we wanted to make sure that all of our evaluation was being housed in the system. And not only was it being housed, but giving us that hard, tangible data that I spoke about earlier to be able to say, hey, this referee is really good at this piece of information. Here's exactly how I can track that and view that. The second hat that we asked our managers to wear, and really the third piece that we asked them to do in the system, is this idea of interaction. Interaction is where our managers can go back and forth and have a true coaching conversation to help that referee learn and grow from whatever event they're talking about. What's great, right, is that all that information gets stored in our database, it feeds back into the referee profiles, and helps our next manager prepare for that game. So let's take a look at what some of that looks like. Here's an example of our referee profile. This is where our managers will come in, they'll be able to pull up any referee and have a really clear picture of how that individual is doing. Being able to look at their career history, how many games they've worked, what leagues they've worked, being able to look at their analytical profile, what trends are we seeing, where are their areas of opportunity. And then also you'll see here the evaluations, like I spoke about before. What one manager said on Monday, I can now come in here without even speaking to that individual and pull up, hey, I see this person was struggling with communication on Monday, or maybe they were struggling with place of the basket and verticality in the last game. Is that a consistent pattern that I'm seeing? And I can then deliver even stronger message to say, hey, this is an area that we need to work on, and send that message to the entire management team, logging it in their profile to then hold them accountable to, or make sure the referee understands where their areas are in real time, right? That's a really big piece of this entire system. All of this is happening in real time. Historically, the gap was we would be waiting, potentially until formal evaluation periods to deliver some of that messaging. This is truly the main screen of the platform, right? We call this our game information page, where we'll speak about evaluation and interaction. So you'll see here on this game information page, this is where our managers and referee alike will come in, and on the right-hand side, you'll see our game event. What's been great, like I identified before, is we are able to come in, search for any play, type in any type of a play, a player, a referee, a specific call, and when you click on that play, you will go directly to that event in the video. And not only that, you'll see in the next piece, every single angle you can jump directly to. So what our referees told us was that, hey, this replay center that we started, right, I think in 2014 is so great. We're able to really, see exactly what I was looking at from this angle, from that angle, get a really clear understanding of our mechanic system. And so we wanted to essentially build a replay center on the go, right? This is a really key piece of the platform so that after I'm done finding my play, I can then click on it, jump right to that, and as soon as I select the angle, it's directly moving me to that angle to watch that video. And finally, in the bottom piece here, you'll see our evaluation. This is where, again, instead of just free text and allowing our staff to not have a clear understanding of what our expectations are around our different competencies, managers can give us that hard, tangible data. So along with all those play calling and analytic data that we're getting from plays being right and wrong, our managers have expertise in what does good communication look like, and not only do they have that expertise, but they have the exact definition in front of them so that we're all speaking one common language. The other key piece of reps is this idea of interaction. And you'll see here right on our mobile phone, again, as I mentioned before, similar to any other social media platform, what we allow our users to do is click on a play. They can send it to 1, 2, or all users, right? What's so great about the platform is within 3 seconds, we can have a member of management send out a play to 75 referees with one with one message that they can all read and fully understand, right? It doesn't matter where they are in the country. They don't need to be sitting at their computer. They get a pop-up on their phone. Hey, Monty McCutcheon has sent me a play. Let me go look at it. And what's great now, we can have a back and forth conversation where all those notifications come through. Interactions really are so great because not only is it manager to referee, referee to manager, but what we've seen so much of it and what's been so great is we even have referee to referee interactions. And while we don't track those, it really helps lead us towards that community of collaboration that we were speaking about. So much of officiating is this idea of mentorship, right? There's really no other way to do it other than to do it. And those that have done it before are able to give that kind of feedback to their peers, not only in the NBA, but from the NBA to the WNBA to the G League and back and forth and all of those different connections. What Reps has allowed us to do is really give us some really amazing insights into some of the data. So you'll see here before Reps launched, we were tracking those emails, phone, and text conversations, and we logged about 1,300 of them in the 2019-2020 season. When Reps launched at the start of 2020, we saw a first-year increase up to 14,000 interactions. Why was this important? Right? It meant referees were now receiving 10 times the amount of performance and development feedback than they were just 4 years ago. And you obviously see that number continuing to rise as people have gotten more familiar with the platform. Here's an example of our competency data and how we might use it. Again, numbers all made up. But you'll see here referee 1 has a significant amount of exceeds. What this may tell us is that they are obviously, by our definition, exceeding our expectations for their position in communication, and allows us to know, hey, maybe this individual is now ready to move to a new position or further advancement in the playoffs, whereas referee 2 maybe is a lesser experienced individual with a little bit more needs in this area. This allows us to develop in real time a performance and development plan surrounding this competency, and continue to monitor it and hold them accountable to it if they do not improve. Just going through a couple other pieces of the platform, right? Here's our web tests, as I mentioned before. We really just wanted to make this one centralized area where they can do everything that they needed to do. We have a really dynamic and extensive Boolean search, right, where I can type in a play, a referee, combine it, and it will give me an exact log of all of those plays in one place that I can click through and watch. So if I wanted to find the last 10 years of me calling travels, I type in my name, I type in travel, and all of a sudden I'm watching every single one of those clips. Same thing with resources, right? We can post more edited videos, our points of emphasis, our rule books, our case books, any other key documents, again, making this one area. So ultimately, we've come a long way from those gaps, but certainly thinking about what the future of this platform looks like. We've been collecting this tangible data now for the last 3 years, and I think we're excited to see where it takes us, right? How can we further utilize technology to help us identify some of those trends, to better give us summaries about an individual so that we don't even need to read all the evaluations, and so a lot of exciting things to look forward to. So we started with that idea of the blinking red light of feedback and how referees back in the day would walk into their hotel room and see that light. We've certainly come a long way with technology and the Reps platform, but that blinking red notification light will always be there. I'll take any questions, and thank you. John?
Hey, John Hollinger with The Athletic. I worked for the Grizzlies for a while. I'm curious about one data challenge in particular, because if you talk to players or coaches about a ref they might have an issue with, typically it's not about the calls. The thing they'll say is, I can't talk to the guy. And I'm just wondering how you measure that kind of thing in the context of a game without like hanging boom mics all around the court, you know? So I'm just really curious about that part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, obviously, in order to measure that accurately, right, it's part of that competency study that we did in order to make sure that we all have the same understanding as what does excellent communication look like, right? And that doesn't always mean, you know, just like letting a player complain, right? It's making sure that we first listen and then can understand and then respond. And so to your point about how do we best measure that when we don't have all the microphones, what our DAs do is, right, they have, you know, hundreds of games in the finals, thousands of playoff games, hundreds of years, I would say, honestly, of experience. And what they're able to do is notice the different characteristics and communication understandings that go on. They also attend the games in person, and particularly for that reason, right? We have so much robust data on our play calling, but what we found, right, was we lacked the same robust data in communication and all of those other characteristics. So sending DAs to the games itself allowed them to hear, right, we sit them kind of closely for a reason, and best be able to log and see, you know, based on body reaction, language, even speaking with the referees after the games, and sometimes with those team stakeholders, to really get that tangible data on what do we expect them to do in this situation when communicating. Yeah.
Elliot Schwartz, USOPC. I'm also a US figure skating judge, and we've been trying to implement an approach to giving, you know, constructive feedback to our officials. So you talked about, you know, you're trying to measure intangible aspects of refereeing, and almost all of our decisions are intangible. So I'm wondering, you mentioned a competency model. So can you talk a little bit about, you know, what's in that model, and, you know, basically how do you express one person's opinion as being correct and another referee's opinion as not being correct?
Yeah, so that competency model really is, right, the foundation of what we were trying to do, right? So Monty McCutcheon, when he first joined our office, he brought in those ideas of intangibles. And so the first thing that we did, we really spent a whole year interviewing, doing a whole behavioral analysis, looking at old feedback, meeting with all the stakeholders in this area to best understand what is excellence, right? And if we could all agree to what is excellence, we can then start to measure it, right? So once we define that, and we define the areas that we all agreed upon are the most important for referees to be able to do, again, beyond the play calling, having that information was our foundation, and then building upon it from there. And so every time our DAs or managers open the system, they get a pop-up of, here is what excellence looked like in this competency. They can read it, they can watch it, they can have it at the top of their mind, so that when they're evaluating each individual event, they have that understanding of, okay, this is what I want to see. Did I see it? No, I didn't. I mark it as such. If I did, I do it the other way. Yeah.
We have time for one more.
All right. Quentin Lopez, future analytics star intern. I have 2 questions really quick.
Awesome.
Can you confirm or deny the existence of superstar calls? And if there's a missed call late in the game, like for example, that Detroit and New York game late in the 4th, does that carry more weight than a less competitive game?
Sure. So two great and very fair questions. First, right, superstar calls, and let me give the caveat, I am not the expert in on-court performance and evaluation, right? We do have manager former referees, but what I can say is the understanding of if you make a superstar call, quote unquote, and it is wrong, that is a wrong call. At the end of the day, if you are making wrong calls, you will be held accountable to making those wrong calls, whether it's on the 12th man on the bench or a superstar. So this notion of superstar calls really doesn't help anybody except hurt the referees that are making those calls because they will be dinged with a wrong call. To the other question about the fourth quarter calls weighing more. So what's been so great about the systems that we have, right, with our game reviewer system, right, Stephen Angel, Evan, and Tucker, and the whole basketball strategy analytics group are able to do, that gives us a very clear picture of right and wrong, right, just grading up on, doesn't matter, time or score, everything like that. What our DAs or what our managers are able to do is have a big picture understanding of, hey, this is a time of game that is important and where we're expecting our best officials to be able to step in and do things properly, right? So at the end of the day, every call is weighed the same, but the expertise that our managers bring are able to interpret some of those nuances about how does this impact the overall game and what referees are understanding things properly, tag it to their profile so that we understand which referees are performing well. Cool. All right, thank you all very much.